Hey guys, today we are going to be talking about news and notes. We're going to be diving into an awesome would you rather between two top notch running backs. And then we're going to hit you over the head a little bit with some top flyers and handcuffs. So do not miss this episode. Guys, don't forget to follow, like, share, and subscribe on all social media platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and that of X. Get ready, we're diving in.
All right. Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Welcome in, Frankie. Can you smell it, my brother? It is draft week, draft season. It's here, man.
My soul is smiling, John. You know when people get excited around the fall time when they're like, ooh, pumpkin spice lattes. Hey, get your pumpkin spice latte. That's how I am with mock drafts. That's how I am with fantasy football. I'll have a pumpkin beer instead of a pumpkin spice latte and we'll enjoy. You know, John, one other call out too, man. Totally sidebar. I get so excited sometimes that I start doing like a slow motion thing. You ever see that guy that it's all over social media to where he's like hitting his head with a soccer ball and it is like the most coolest shit ever. Totally sidebar. That's how I feel on the inside, John. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, it's kind of what you look like on the outside too. Yeah. Love that. For people just listening, Frankie's running in slow motion right now. So
that's right.
Yeah. Another reason to watch the video. Draft season is PSL season. Okay, good to know. Notes by Frankie.
Notes by Frankie.
Thank you for joining us, everyone, and thank you for following us. The growth on the channel has been wonderful. We owe it all to you.
Yes.
Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, you guys. We really appreciate it. Please continue following, sharing, commenting on all social media, X at Frankly Fantasy F, Facebook and Instagram at Frankly Fantasy Football, and please watch the videos on YouTube, guys. We've done a ton of mock drafts. We've done rookies. We've done new faces and new places. We're going to give you some drafting tips with sleepers and flyers and handcuffs. We've got our champions episode coming up. We're trying to give you as much information as possible to help you win your leagues. That's the whole point, guys. Win your goddamn leagues. Go get you a trophy. Frankie, let me see the trophy. You got one?
I got one. Hold on.
You do have one.
Look at that.
Everybody, look at that trophy right there. That's what you need. Go get yourself a trophy. Just not that trophy, because God knows what Frankie's done with that fucking thing.
I feel bad for the next person that has to take it.
I'm going to have to wipe it down with Clorox wipes, I guarantee. Yeah, before I do the trophy ceremony this year.
Like, are they happy tissues? Or are they sad tissues? I'm just curious.
I don't have any sad tissues. They're all happy tissues. What do you mean? Every day.
Oh, God.
On that note, let's get to the news, baby.
News and notes.
Top item of news, Frank. It's not even news. It's the news item that's not news. We've got contract problems. All right, we're drafting. I mean, people have already drafted, and a lot of drafts are happening this weekend, including our own drafts are happening this weekend. Listen, man, we got some heavy hitters. We got some badass motherfuckers here that don't have contracts and are not practicing and are not on the field. So this is kind of freaking me out a little bit here. But we've got CeeDee Lamb with the Cowboys, number 3 overall pick. We've got Jamar Chase of the Bengals, again, top 4 pick in the draft. And then we've got Brandon Aiyuk flirting with other teams right now. I mean, fuck, man, we're 2 weeks away, or we're a week away at this point from actually playing football. So what's going on, man? Are you nervous? Are you changing your draft strategy with these guys at this point? What are you doing?
John, that's a really good question. So for 2 of them, no. For 1 of them, yes, I am changing my draft strategy a bit. For the ones that I'm not, I'll start off with CeeDee Lamb. I think a deal is going to get done. And what's interesting, John, is I was actually flip-flopped with the other guy that I'll talk about here in a second, Jamar Chase, that I thought Jamar Chase was going to be done. I was talking about that a couple episodes ago. CeeDee Lamb, I was a little bit nervous. Of course, things change week to week, day to day, hour to hour in the NFL. And so with CeeDee Lamb, No, I think you're completely fine to still draft him at the second, first, third, fourth overall, wherever it is you find that within those first 4 picks, stay course. The reason being, John, is because Jerry Jones did come out and end up saying that there is a deal closing in. Caveat, one little asterisk. What was interesting is that, though, we started seeing Browns players following that of CeeDee Lamb on social media. And so what's interesting is it just because the Browns are playing them week 1? Is there something in the works between Jerry Jones and Andrew Berry? All of that, I don't know. And I think it's all just a bunch of hoopla, and I think that it's all going to be okay. So even if something crazy were to happen with CeeDee Lamb, which I don't think it's going to happen, I think he's going to be a Dallas Cowboy. I'm not worried about him. John, who I am worried about is Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase was recently speaking with that of Chad Ochocinco, and basically said, and Chad basically also came out and said this as well, that he would recommend that Jamar Chase doesn't step on that field if he doesn't have a contract. And I actually think Jamar Chase and the Bengals aren't that close yet. And so when you're thinking about the start of the league, when we're 1 week away from literally kickoff at this point in time, John, that significantly kind of freaks me out. And so, him being maybe a top 5 pick, I'm going to probably go Amon-Ra over him now. I'm going to go JJ over him now, even with, Sam Darnold at the helm. There's just too many different things that I'm not willing to put my entire team's stake on waiting until Jamar Chase maybe gets a contract in week 3 or week 2 or week 4, which I hope it would be before that, but I'm not willing to risk my entire team on that. John, the other key item that you mentioned, or the key person, is Brandon Aiyuk. Not really nervous about it. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a San Francisco 49er, though, but I think that he is going to find a nice, cozy home somewhere. What's interesting, John, is that Jahan Dotson went to that of the Eagles. The reason that this is interesting is because I think that they could potentially be moving around certain pieces to make a play at Brandon Aiyuk. Again, it makes a lot of sense. We talked about this. Brandon Aiyuk played with Jayden Daniels at Arizona State. Brandon Aiyuk is really close with Jayden Daniels, right? And then on top of it, the Commanders have the capability to also bring on Brandon Aiyuk. So whether he does end up staying at San Francisco, whether he does end up going to the Commanders, knowing he's roughly about a 3rd round pick in 12-team leagues, or maybe 4th round, depending on, I'm okay. I don't think anything's going to change. So for CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Aiyuk, stay course for the time being. Stay close, though, to the information, but you're okay in my eyes. Jamar Chase, I'm a little bit hesitant, man. I think that would change where I would take him in the 1st round.
I'm with you on that, man. Absolutely. That's good analysis. Let's get right to the next piece of news then. You happened to mention it already. You stole my thunder there, Frank. Jahan Dotson plus a 5th round pick traded to the Eagles for 5th and 2 7ths. All right, yes, it looks like they're making room for Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, as soon as I saw that trade come across, I went, oh shit, that's what they're doing. This is going to happen. So maybe by the time this episode airs, we'll have an update. But as of right now, we do not. Does this do anything for you as far as fantasy goes? Jahan Dotson going to the Eagles?
No, in terms of the Eagles, right? So no, in reference, if I'm drafting AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, do I have to worry about them or Jahan Dotson eating into target share? Absolutely not. What this does kind of do is it bolsters Terry McLaurin a tad in my eyes, right? Because of its straight up target share amount. Now, again, this is completely under the assumption that they are not adding Brandon Aiyuk. If they go a different route, the 49ers re-sign him, right? The Washington Commanders are kind of sitting there and it's Terry McLaurin's show. In that particular case, I love Terry McLaurin just in sheer target share. But no, nothing in terms of the Eagles at this point.
Okay, gotcha. All right, talk about a few things here. Gardner Minshew named the Raiders QB1. I like that move. It makes me feel a lot better about Brock Bowers and Devontae Adams, knowing that Gardner Minshew is going to be chucking the ball down the field. So I love that. See, a couple of injuries here. Some guys to pay attention to. Nothing looks catastrophic at the moment, but pay attention, guys. CMC currently not practicing with a calf strain. He's pushing to play week 1, but Kyle Shanahan said that he's been a psychopath about his rehab trying to get in. So knowing CMC and how he functions, I see him being there for week 1, man. Brock Bowers missed preseason game and practice with a sore foot. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but just pay attention to it. Mike Tomlin says that Jaylen Warren's hamstring injury will not keep him out too long, but he may miss week 1. He's looking at a couple of weeks here. So if you're looking at a couple of weeks, we got football next week, guys. So I wouldn't expect Jaylen Warren to be out there for week 1, which if you're playing daily fantasy, if you're drafting, take a look at Najee Harris, man. Absolutely. If he's got that backfield alone, he's going to have a ton of value. No question about it. Jalen Waddle, the Miami Dolphins, also been out since August 7th. He hasn't practiced for quite a while. It's an undisclosed minor injury. They're not giving us any information on it, but it does seem to be minor. It doesn't seem like it's going to be an issue, but just pay attention to that one as well. Dallas Goedert missed practice with an oblique injury. Pay attention to Dallas Goedert if you're a Devonta Smith owner. We've got the data on this. When Dallas Goedert is not running in the middle of the field, Devonta Smith's value goes up big time. So pay attention to that if you're a Devonta Smith owner. All right, this one, it's a little rough, but it's just a little interesting as well for this backfield. Kendre Miller, running back for the New Orleans Saints, he may be placed on IR. He's got a hamstring injury. It looks pretty bad. If he's placed on IR, it's an automatic 4 games. So that leaves Alvin Kamara and it leaves Jamal Williams. Do you think this is going to boost either of those guys, or is going to have very little effect on fantasy, Frankie?
John, personally, I think it's going to have very little impact on fantasy. We saw last year, right, when they tried to get him involved, it really kind of flopped, even with that of Alvin Kamara being out the first few weeks. So for me, man, I think that what this could do, though, it could absolutely solidify. It will solidify. I'll just go with that for Jamal Williams as RB2. And so if you're looking at, something interesting in a late round draft and you're like, just in case, it could be a flyer to take on that of Jamal, but I don't think it's going to change anything drastically.
All right, let's get to our Would You Rather.
Would you rather poke a stick up in your eye or eat a bag of shit? Sit up on a pineapple or throw it on her dick? I said, would you rather?
All right, now we're at our Would You Rather. Frankie, we've got 2 guys here. This is tough, man. This is a very difficult Would You Rather. I almost hesitated doing it because it's really difficult to figure out which guy to take here. But these guys are literally back-to-back. They're right there in the second round waiting for you. We've got Derrick Henry and Travis Etienne. Derrick Henry of the Baltimore Ratbirds, the Ravens. Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, Frankie, King Henry, break him down for us. Let's talk about it.
King Henry the 10th, baby. He is running back 9. His ADP is 18. So what does that mean? You're going to need to take him in the first 2, maybe 3 rounds, depending on your particular league. Guys, what he has done is, looking at stats, when we look at last year, again, it is a King Henry kind of year. 243 fantasy points and that of half PPR. What does that mean? He averaged 14 points a game just about. And so then you look at, okay, well, what is his hard stats? Hard stats meaning rushing yards, etc. Over 1,100 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, 36 targets, 28 receptions, 214 yards receiving. Dude was a freaking stud once again, man. Now, John, we got to break this down even further, because just by looking at stats with King Henry, we got to really start diving in. And the first thing that comes to mind for me, man, is the strength of schedule. What does this look like when you're comparing him to another top-tier caliber running back? The Baltimore Ravens end up having the 4th hardest schedule based on Vegas forecasted win totals. So they have the 4th hardest schedule in the NFL this year. So what does that mean? What are some pros and cons for that then of King Henry? Well, the biggest pro there is he's no longer playing with Tannehill. He's no longer playing with Will Levis. John, he is playing with 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, just so happened to run for 800 yards last year. What's also interesting is the Ravens had, last year, they had the most rushing yards of any particular team in the NFL last year. And if you remember who was their top running back, it was Gus Edwards, man. And so when you're layering on King Henry and swapping him for Gus Edwards, that's like, I mean, do you want 5 guys or do you want a steak dinner filet from, Marble Room in Cleveland, right? So completely different tiers here, man. So then we layer it, break down the onion even further here. He's going to a way better offensive line unit, man. Last year, the Titans' offensive line was terrible, absolutely pathetic. And so now you're going to an offensive line again to where they already had the number one rushing team in the NFL. In addition, man, Derrick Henry still led the league with the most rushing attempts. How crazy is that? Led the league with the most rushing attempts. And over the last 6 years, he's never had less than double-digit touchdowns. Here's what's crazy. The last 6 years, never less than double-digit touchdowns. That includes his 8-game season in 2021 where he got hurt. He still had 10 touchdowns. John, what this dude is doing is nothing short of incredible. What he's done for the Titans, and now he's going to be able to bring that to that of the Ravens. Okay, cool. What's a con for him then? Well, the biggest con that I can see, man, is number one, Lamar. As much as I said that is a pro, it could slightly be a con. And I say that because Lamar is a rushing quarterback, could certainly take some of those rushing attempts, whether it's around the goal line or even in short yardage formats. Lamar does really well because he's so shifty. The other key call out is the defenses that Derrick Henry played against when he was with the Titans. Much different caliber than that of the AFC North. AFC North, they ended up having 2 top 10 defenses last year. And then in addition, already looking at that of 2024, the Browns are projected number 1 and the Steelers are projected in the top 8. So now King Henry is going to have to play 4 games against projected top 10 defenses that are already within their division. So that is, it's a little bit rough. But overall, man, am I a big fan of King Henry.
He's a stud, man. I mean, it's a new face in a new place. It's always a risk when an aging running back goes to a new team. Always. But man, I've been calling for the end of Derrick Henry for like 3 years now, man, and it just hasn't happened. I mean, shit, the guy played every single game last year. He didn't miss a single game.
Crazy.
He had 12 touchdowns. He had a stretch, week 12, 13, and 14, 3 games in a row with double touchdowns. 2 touchdowns in each of those 3 games in a row. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm concerned about are the touchdowns. Absolutely, because Lamar Jackson, does get a lot of touchdowns, does run the ball a lot inside the 10, but maybe he won't as much because they have Derrick Henry. Then they can keep hands off of Lamar Jackson, which I think needs to happen as much as possible. So I love it. I love the spot he's in. I love the team he's on. I love his competition, which isn't much. Keaton Mitchell, it's kind of a home run guy, very much like a Tajay Spears type running back. Coming off an ACL injury, yeah. And then you've got some of the other, common names that we've seen in that backfield for quite a while, but nothing that's going to take a lot of volume away from Derrick Henry there. So yeah, they're going to be in a scoring position much more often than what we've seen Derrick Henry. So maybe his yards go down, but his touchdowns go up because they're just in scoring position much more. So it's really interesting. I mean, all of these things I think are very, very good things for Derrick Henry. So I love him. I'm all over him this year. All right. Who are we comparing him to here, Frankie?
John, it's Travis Etienne. As you mentioned earlier on, guys, and John, you hit the nail on the head. They are being drafted right next to each other. Travis Etienne is running back 8 and his ADP is 17, right? Derrick Henry was running back 9. His ADP is that of 18. So literally right next to each other. So what did Travis Etienne do? Well, Travis Etienne ended up being a top 5 fantasy football running back last year. Absolutely amazing, man. Ended up having 258 fantasy points in half PPR. He's averaged just about around 15 points a game. And he ended up having 1,008 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns. But if you are in a half PPR or PPR, come here, get a little closer. He ended up having 73 targets. He had 58 receptions, 476 yards receiving, and 1 touchdown. Let me repeat that. 73 targets as a running back. You never see that shit outside of CMC. So, and maybe Alvin Kamara in his heyday. And, how about this? Maybe a Matt Forte, bringing that way back. But yes, man, so really, really solid in half PPR. So let's talk about the strength of schedule, right? The Ratbirds have the 4th hardest. What are we looking at for the Jags? Well, the Jags have the 14th easiest, right? So they're kind of in the middle of the pack there. And again, this is based on Vegas forecasted win totals. So it's really, really positive, right? Because you're not having to play a lot of these top tier defenses multiple times. So what are some additional pros? This is really fascinating. John, in 2022, Travis Etienne ended up averaging 5.1 yards a carry. In college, he ended up averaging, in total, 7.2 yards a carry. Last year, he averaged 3.8 yards a carry due to a terrible line and still performed the way he performed. That is why I'm saying this is a pro. What we have seen historically from Travis Etienne has been nothing short of magical in terms of his yards per carry. Last year wasn't even 4 yards, and he still was dominant. Really nice. The other is massive upside with target share. Guys, he ended up having 73 targets with Calvin Ridley, with Zay Jones, with Christian Kirk, right? A lot, Evan Ingram, you name it, right? He's been there. And now with Calvin Ridley gone, now with Zay Jones gone, and you bring in a rookie receiver and Gabe Davis, we know Gabe Davis's thing. He's a boom bust guy. He's not going to get a lot of receptions. His ADOT is his key. So then you're going to say, okay, well, is the reception or target monster going to be a rookie? Highly doubt it. Highly doubt it. Not knocking Brian Thomas Jr. Love the dude. Totally should draft him if you get the opportunity. But it's not a possession kind of receiver. And so then you start looking at, okay, so now there's vacated targets all over the place. I think that only bodes well for Travis Etienne. And in addition, John, as I mentioned, the offensive line is continuing to improve. There's a lot of continuity here. They struggled last year. They're bringing back just about everybody. And everything from the preseason perspective so far, Doug Peterson has been really, really high on this offensive line. Good to hear. What are some of the cons? What do I need to be worried about with Travis Etienne? Well, the Jags have talked a lot this offseason about getting Tank Bigsby more involved. So whether that's lessening the load of Travis Etienne a tad, or whether that is actually putting Tank Bigsby in more of a goal line format, we have yet to be seen. That could also be coaches speak. Who knows? But I do know, watching Tank Bigsby in college at Auburn, the dude was a freaking stud. And so now that is something that, do we need to be a little bit worried about? Something we might want to pay attention to. Also, huge call out, John. Etienne saw roughly about 22 touches a game and about 106 total yards a game through weeks 1 through 8. Amazing, incredible. The issue is, and that's, by the way, he ended up being running back 4. The issue is it dipped significantly in games, right, 9 through 16. And so he ended up having, John, it dipped down to 16 touches a game and actually 70 total yards a game, which equates to running back 22. So then you kind of pull yourself out of this. And what do those numbers mean? That means he was really solid in the beginning when he had fresh legs. Towards the back half of the season, when he started getting a little bit tired, banged up, right? The season starts getting to you, Tad. He dropped to running back 22. So totally things to keep in mind. And just to list them out. So I actually went back 2 years, John, just to validate what this looks like. In 2022, when we look at weeks 13 through 15, he was ranked running back 38, running back 44, running back 22, running back 15. Why did I say weeks 13 through 16, not 13 through 15, 13 through 16? Because that is the fantasy playoffs. That is the Super Bowl. So now you're seeing him taper down. What did he do last year? That was in 2022. What did he do last year? Running back 12, running back 15, running back 30, and running back 48. That is not making me warm and fuzzy inside when you start seeing your second round draft pick right now being tapered down significantly in the back half of the year towards your playoff. So John, all in all, I love both of these guys, but for me, man, it's easy when we start breaking this down. I get Travis Etienne was a top 5 running back last year. Hats off to you. I get that Derrick Henry is King Henry and will always be. For me, man, I am going with Derrick Henry. I'm going with the upside of an offensive line that already had the most rushing yards last year. They're adding a significant piece in King Henry that is totally different than that of Gus Edwards. And King Henry gets stronger throughout the year. So when you're going into your playoffs and you're going down the stretch and the weather gets cold and it gets really tight and things like that, you know you can lean on that of Derrick Henry towards your potential fantasy playoff and hopefully what would be your Super Bowl. What are your thoughts, man?
It's a really tough one for me. I was actually looking at their playoff schedules, and yeah, I mean they're both about the same here. Yeah, I mean looking at Travis Etienne, these guys are so similar in stats and everything, believe it or not, and situation, even though they're very different players. But I mean, Travis Etienne played every single game as well last year. 11 touchdowns to Derrick Henry's 12. Actually, he had 12 touchdowns if you count the
Receiving touchdown.
The receiving touchdown, yeah. Also had 3 games in a row with 2 touchdowns. Exactly just like Derrick Henry did. So it's really interesting. I think mine is going to be contingent. I think in a standard league, non-PPR, I'm taking Derrick Henry, and I'm not even thinking twice about it. It's not even close in my mind. But in a PPR, full PPR, I'm absolutely taking Travis Etienne. I will switch based on the format, and that's something you guys really need to pay attention to.
What about half?
Half PPR?
Come on,
Fuck
put your
me.
stamp on it, Johnny. Who are you
Toss a
going
coin,
with?
man.
Come on.
I think I would much rather anchor my team with a Travis Etienne.
Okay,
If we're
interesting.
talking about, if we're talking about a half point PPR, and I'm staring at, this is going to be probably my RB1. I go very heavy typically in these drafts with running or receivers in the first round or two. So this likely to be my running back 1. I'm just going to take a little bit more youth. I'm going to take a little bit
Sure.
more in the passing game. Even though I think Derrick Henry's going to have an excellent season, and I do love him, but I do steer more towards Travis Etienne and a half point or full point PPR. In a standard league, I'm taking Derrick Henry.
Love it.
All right. Okay, let's get to, Frankie, what we're going to do here, we're going to talk some handcuffs, man.
Ooh.
All right, let's talk about some handcuffs here. Why don't you explain to everybody what a handcuff is and what a handcuff isn't?
Guys, what a handcuff is not. We are not listing off guys that are like a 1A to a 1B. A good example of who we are not focusing on are teams like that of Washington Commanders, where you have Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson. That to me is a 1A, 1B. Neither of those guys are a handcuff to the other. The Lions, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chargers, Miami, Cincinnati, Tennessee, Dallas, Panthers. These are teams that are actually having a 2-back tandem or a complete committee, right? So these are not handcuffs. What is a handcuff is somebody who is absolutely the running back 2 on the team, but the running back 1 is the guy. There's no question about it. Don't even think twice about it. It's that guy unless something crazy happens like an injury. That is what we're going with. So a handcuff is somebody who is truly behind a running back 1. Okay? So, John, the first handcuff here, man, and I got it. And this is a guy that, we might have thought, right, that, Frank, you just said this could be a 1A, 1B situation. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, this is not. It's Tyler Allgeier. And the reason that he's a true handcuff this year, John, is because Raheem Morris is not Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith liked the 2 running back tandem for whatever the reason was. It was the most frustrating shit I've ever seen. Because you have a Ferrari in the garage and you're rolling out, in a brand new Ford Taurus. Not a bad car, but it ain't a fucking Ferrari, right? And so Tyler Allgeier is definitely going to take a step back, right? He's going to be the running back 2 there. I don't see it being a tandem play. So he's being drafted as the running back 50. His ADP is 162. Okay, but what's interesting about you should be taking a bench spot with that of Tyler Allgeier is because last year he nearly had 1,200 total yards and 226 touches. Again, that will not happen this year. I would be absolutely shocked if it did. It will take a Bijan injury for that to happen. Also, John, this might be the best handcuff we have. This might in the NFL, right? Because we've seen he can perform at a very high level with over 1,000-yard season just by himself, not including total yards, just rushing yards. And so for me, man, if you have the ability to draft this cat, please do it because you can sit on him for a minute and shit, man, it might end up coming to play to where the Falcons are beating the absolute hell out of a team. They want to rest Bijan and in comes Tyler Allgeier and we start seeing him perform a little bit. So he might have some standalone value is what I'm getting at. But at the end of the day, man, I think he's the top handcuff, and it's not close.
I do too. I mean, this is a guy that if something does happen to Bijan, even if it's just a game or two,
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's going to be, you're going to be spending your nuts off on the waiver wire trying to get this guy. So I like having him. If you've got a deeper bench, I love stashing him there because he immediately becomes an RB1 if there's an injury to Bijan. So love it, man. Get to the next guy here, Frankie, because I love this guy. This is a guy I took on our last mock draft. I think he's in a great position. I think he's a great running back. Talk to me a little bit about Tre Benson for the Arizona Cardinals.
Rookie review, check it out, guys. It's going to be right over here. Go ahead and click that. The reason being is because we're going to do a deep dive analysis for you in Tre Benson. But just to give you some cliff notes here, he's being drafted as running back 38. His ADP is 110. Okay, so what's interesting about Tre Benson, John, is that James Conner hasn't played more than 13 games in over the last 2 seasons. That is a huge opportunity for Tre Benson to come in and actually get some real PT. In addition, they are positioning Tre Benson truly as the running back 2. He had a really awful first preseason game and had a massive bounce back on the second preseason game to the point to where the coaches, the front office literally made a statement about, wow, is he rapidly getting better quickly. So love Tre Benson from that perspective, man. And I think you can get him pretty cheap, right? We're talking ADP of 110. I mean, I know that's not the ADP of, 162 with Tyler Allgeier, but for 110, I mean, guys, we're talking in a 10-man league, that's round 11. In a 12-man league, that's early round 10, right? Maybe back half of 9, depending on how crazy your teams are drafting. So you can still get this guy a really good value. And John, he's probably going to have some standalone value as well.
He will absolutely start this year at some point. James Conner, I love him this year. I think he's got a great opportunity. Now they've got some weapons with Marvin Harrison Jr. and a healthy Kyler Murray. But man, James Conner's never played a full season. His entire career, not 1 year has he played all games. That just bodes well for Tre Benson. He's going to come in with fresh legs, and I think he's going to be really good with this offense, man. So yeah, absolutely. Love grabbing him just for some depth at my running back position there. All right, let's look at this guy, another rookie here, man. I love these rookies. Check out that rookie review, guys. Yep. But we've got Blake Corum, running back for the Los Angeles Rams. Talk to me about Blake.
Guys, running back 41, ADP 116. Okay, so you can even get him after Tre Benson. So what's interesting about Blake Corum is that he was drafted in the 3rd round. So what that means in real NFL play is that you're going to get some playing time, right? You get somebody that early. You're not just getting him that early just to sit there and rot. So I really think that Blake Corum could absolutely get some play. And what we've seen from Sean McVay, he's not afraid to mix it up. I mean, you saw Cam Akers, then they brought in Darrell Henderson. Now, they give Kyren Williams the shot and he runs away with it last year. And so now what if Kyren Williams gets hurt? What if Kyren Williams isn't 100% from some of the offseason stuff, which it sounds like he is, or he's getting there and he'll be ready to rock and roll. But what if something happens? What if Blake Corum starts really performing well, right? I think that this would bode well for early down work for him or even some goal line, right? Because he's a different type of back than Kyren Williams. Blake Corum is not as shifty, right? Blake Corum is that bruiser type that's really quick through the hole, but he's not moving laterally really fast, So that's why I think Kyren Williams is a slightly different back than that of Blake Corum, but even more so, that's why I think Blake Corum could be worth a bench spot in your league.
Okay, this next guy I'm very interested in, Frank. Yes. I need you to talk to me a little bit about him, mainly because in our family 14-team keeper league, my keeper this year is Breece Hall in the 4th. I know. Yeah.
You suck.
Yep, I'll go ahead and take a lap for that one. I love that. All right, talk to me about Braelon Allen, running back for the New York Jets, backing up Breece Hall. Talk to me about it, baby.
Cheap. You can get him dirt cheap. Running
Nobody
back
knows
60.
who he is.
Nobody knows who he is.
Nobody knows who he is.
Running back 60. ADP is 202. Guys, what that means is he's not being drafted. He should absolutely be being drafted by certain people, especially keepers that own Breece Hall. The reason being is because, guys, if you haven't seen this dude, it is as if DK Metcalf is a running back. That is literally borderline almost the size of Braelon Allen. He is a fucking monster. On top of it, he had over 2,000 yards over there at Wisconsin over the course of his time. And in addition, man, he's already going, it looks like based on his preseason work, based on what's happening, he seems to be earning a real role in the offense, right? Whether that's spelling Breece here and there, whether that's maybe taking over a few reps on goal line, maybe that's just being there in the whims, whatever that means, there's absolutely talk of him earning his right to be in that backup role. So for me, man, with how dirt cheap this is, if you are keeping Breece Hall, if you're drafting, your draft stock is in Breece Hall in the first round, right? For those that don't have him as a keeper, why would you not want to secure that first round pick? Why would you not want to make sure that this rookie who was dominating in the Big Ten, who played in shit weather, who's going to go to the Jets, dominate if he gets the opportunity, from my perspective, based on what I've seen, and playing in shit weather, right, on a good team, as long as Aaron Rodgers is there, with great receivers around him, protect your draft stock. And that's where you can get Braelon Allen for literally nothing. So, John, that's why, especially for you, man, dude, it's a gold mine that you can sit there and you can grab this dude and not even trip.
Okay, let's move on here. Last guy we're going to talk about is handcuffs. Zach Charbonnet, running back for the Seattle Seahawks, backing up KW3, Kenneth Walker III. Talk to me about him.
John, running back 44, ADP 136. What does that mean? We're looking in 10-man league, maybe round 13, 14, 12-man league, maybe around that 12-round mark. So you can get him for nothing, guys. What's interesting about Zach Charbonnet is he is probably the closest to a 1A, 1B here in what I've listed, but he is not. He did play a complimentary role last year due to the fact of Kenneth Walker getting a little banged up. He finished with 141 touches and 671 total yards. But here's what was interesting about Zach Charbonnet. Number one is he ranked 20th out of the entirety of the NFL, ranked 20th in explosive runs and 11th in yards after contact per attempt. What that tells me is when he is getting the ball, he is going forward. He's not getting hit back. He's bouncing forward and is getting positive yardage constantly. So for me, out of all the guys we listed, I actually think he could be the guy that has the most standalone value, because I truly think that he could spell that of KW3 a bit more. We already saw that, even though the coaches came out and said they're going to run the tits off of that of Kenneth Walker III. Like, so that was already said by Mike McDaniel and the coaching staff. But a lot of times, again, it's coaches talk. And a lot of times they're trying to hype up their guy. So for me, man, to lock in a super high caliber backup, man, that does have some standalone value at an ADP of 136, I mean, this is a fucking gold mine and should absolutely be something that people pay attention to from a handcuff perspective.
Okay, we got a couple of honorable mentions here. We don't want to go into too much detail, but want you guys to be aware of a couple more handcuffs that we think could have some value for you. We've got Ray Davis. He's the rookie running back. You'll see him in our rookie review. He's backing up James Cook with the Buffalo Bills. So very interesting there. Ty Chandler backing up Aaron Jones in Minnesota, and Jamal Williams backing up Alvin Kamara in New Orleans Saints. That one's interesting because Kendre Miller is going to miss a lot of time here. So Jamal Williams will be definitely the handcuff there to an aging Alvin Kamara. So that one sounds pretty juicy to me. All right, Frankie, let's get to the next segment here. The last thing we're going to talk about are top 5 flyers. Please explain to everybody, what in the hell is a flyer?
Yes, good call out, John. Guys, what a flyer is not, it is not a sleeper. A sleeper is somebody who is much more in the middle tier rounds that you're getting some good value on that people necessarily aren't really talking about. A flyer is somebody, and how I ended up doing this is anybody with an ADP over that of 140. So if you think about that, it's going to be, if you're in a 10-man league, that means 14th round. If you are in a 12-man league, that literally means 12, back half of 12, 13 round. I wanted to do this because this is going to potentially be your last pick. John, we mentioned it in our last episode that our number one flyer last year, and it wasn't even close, was Nico Collins, and he went off. And so this year we wanted to take that same approach and kind of give you guys the same lay of the land as us having called out Nico Collins last year.
This first guy here, Frankie, I love it. It fits exactly uh, your definition of a flyer. You can get him as your last pick, and I love doing it. This could be the Nico Collins of this year. I'm just throwing that out there as a possible prediction. It's kind of a nebulous receiver room in Green Bay. This is Dontayvion Wicks, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. Tell us why you think he's a great flyer.
Guys, he's receiver 58, ADP 152. Last year, he had only 39 receptions, but had 581 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was a rookie last year that wasn't even talked about in the beginning of the year and exploded towards the back half. So much so, John, he actually ranked 11th out of every receiver in the NFL, ranked 11th in yards per target. That's insane when you think about the level of talent and the receivers in the NFL. That Dontayvion Wicks was literally 11th in yards per target in the NFL. In addition, John, he has great quarterback play. You can't pick a flyer if the quarterback room sucks. It doesn't make sense. So now that we've seen Love get paid at $55 million a year, you saw him explode. I mean, shit, I even think Colin Cowherd ended up listing him as his dark horse MVP, which is kind of crazy in my eyes, but it's so fun. It makes it fun. And so that's why, John, when you have a guy that produced last year, beat out Christian Watson to a certain degree, and really kind of beat out Romeo Doubs towards the end, and it was really just Jayden Reed and him and some of Romeo Doubs, why wouldn't you take a flyer on this guy? And by the way, if you haven't been watching the preseason, dude's been fucking tearing up. So for me, man, I love Dontayvion Wicks.
Yeah, it's a similar receiver room to what you see with, teams like Kansas City. They've got a handful of guys that have flashed and have performed. You want to get a little piece. We're not really sure who the one is. It should be Christian Watson, but it should have been Christian Watson last year too. And he allowed Jayden Reed to emerge and Dontayvion Wicks and Doubs. But Dontayvion Wicks, I think he's a better player than Romeo Doubs. I think he's a better player. I think he and Jayden Reed both are very, very good. I want a piece of this Green Bay offense. I want one of these guys. And typically when I'm looking at I want a piece of somebody, I usually take the cheaper one because you've got the best option for that guy way overperforming his ADP, which with Dontayvion Wicks, he's definitely going to perform his ADP. He's free. He's not even being drafted. So love grabbing him at the end of the draft, man. Great call. All right, let's get to the next guy here, Frankie. This one surprised me a little bit. I like it. Yeah, I don't know a lot about this guy. So, inform me here, Frankie. His name is Colby Parkinson, tight end for the Los Angeles Rams. Talk about it.
Not often do you guys want to take a flyer on a tight end. If you are waiting on a tight end, this is a guy you should consider. He's going at tight end 33. His ADP is 279. It's non-existent. He's literally not being drafted. But here's why he could be very, very interesting, is that he is set to play a significant role in the offense with the injury of Higbee. And I know this because McVay even came out and said that. In addition, he signed a 3-year, $22.5 million contract this past offseason, and it wasn't even talked about. That's what was so weird. We had a tight end that ended up getting a $22 million contract, and it was like, oh yeah, cool, nobody knows a lot about him, but yeah, that's great. It's just so weird to me. So I really think that this dude's going to be dominant. The other thing is he's going to get playing time because of Higbee getting hurt. But in addition to that, he's a great blocker as much as he is a good pass catcher. So when you have a tight end that can do both, that means you're going to be on the field for more opportunities. So for me, man, looking at kind of the landscape of the Rams, you have Matt Stafford. Look at what Matt Stafford has done historically with his tight ends. It has been very good. On top of that, Cooper Kupp is there. Puka Nacua is there. These guys are excellent. But if one of them get hurt, which every year it seems like Cooper Kupp or one of the other receivers are going to get hurt, Colby Parkinson absolutely is going to be a target monster in that specific situation. Let's just say everybody's healthy, John. He's a perfect outlet guy as well. So there's a lot of good stuff happening with Colby Parkinson to where maybe you do want to take a flyer on him instead over that of maybe a Cole Kmet, where he's now competing with that of Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Tyler Scott, Keenan Allen, etc. or maybe over that of a Pat Freiermuth, to where, things are a little bit up in the air with the quarterback room and we're not really sure how it's going to shake out. So you can wait, sit, draft your team, and maybe get a cat like that, a Colby Parkinson in the back.
That's a sneaky one, man. That's a sneaky one.
Sneaky.
All right, the next guy, we're going to travel down to New Orleans here, Nolans, and we're going to talk about Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver for the Saints, man. Talk about it.
I mean, this guy was a sleeper last year. This guy was considered that. And the fact that he's actually, his ADP, John, is still 146. He's receiver 57, I think is really disrespectful, if I'm being honest with you. He had 75 targets last year, 46 receptions, 719 yards receiving, and 5 touchdowns. John, this dude, I mean, in my opinion, he's got that receiver 2 spot probably locked up, assuming, something crazy doesn't happen with MT or whatever's going on from that side of things, let alone he's definitely receiver 3 at worst. And so for me, man, he had the other big time call out with Rashid Shaheed. He had 31 catches, over 20 yards. What does that equate to? 14th in the NFL. Guys, that is phenomenal. That is not an ADP of 146. That is not a receiver 57. That is a really solid flex player for you. And when you layer on the receptions, the 719 yards, the 5 touchdowns, etc., that's solid. And he almost had 80 targets. That is really good. And so, man, like all of this combined, I love Rashid Shaheed. And I think with the continuity with Derek Carr there, with Chris Olave going to be able to take the ceiling off along with him, and then you layer on Alvin Kamara, sure, there's quite a few mouths to feed, but Derek Carr seems to really like this guy. So for me, man, he's an interesting flyer.
Okay, next guy, we're going to head out to L.A. Let's go to Los Angeles for the Chargers here. Josh Palmer. You want to talk about a guy not getting any respect? Right now, he's technically the one. He's technically the wide receiver 1 right now for the Los Angeles Chargers. All right, we've got Justin Herbert back in practice. Everything good to go there. Talk to me about Josh Palmer.
I mean, it's crazy, John. I mean, he's receiver 55 right now, ADP 150. Okay, so again, that's 15th round in a 10-man league. Last year, he had 61 targets, 38 receptions, 581 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Without Mike Williams and Keenan Allen on the field, he ended up averaging 11 points a game in half PPR. Really solid. That's a flex piece if I've ever seen one. Kind of borderline a receiver 2 at that point, man. 11 points a game, double digits. You're averaging that without these 2 other guys there. That's borderline some crazy shit happening. And so he was even doing this, John, to your point. You called out Herbert's healthy. He was doing this when Herbert wasn't healthy. He was doing this with Jake Fromm, I believe. It was the quarterback at the time. And so, or whoever the backup was there. So for me, man, I mean, knowing his production without those 2 studs in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, knowing without his top tier, very well paid quarterback in Justin Herbert, he's still balled out. So what does the landscape look like? Of course, they added Lade McConkey, and then they also have Quentin Johnston. But John, outside of that, man, there's not a lot of shit going on. And so, I mean, Quentin Johnston, he really failed last year. I mean, really, really badly failed. And even in the preseason, he's been not doing well. Laddie's been balling out. And so what's interesting is Joshua Palmer, to your point, could literally be the receiver 1 on this team that you could get for literally nothing. So check him out.
Yeah, it's foolish to not, if you see him there at the end of your draft,
take him,
put him on your team. It's ridiculous. There is 100% chance he overperforms his ADP. He is going to be involved. He's going to have targets from Justin Herbert on it seems to be shaping up to be a good team. They are projected to be a good offense. So yeah, man, this is such a no-brainer to me. It is disrespectful that he's going that late. All right. Last guy here, Frankie. Let's talk about Jakobi Meyers of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Man, Jakobi Meyers is another guy getting mad disrespect. And the reason being is because last year, John, he had 106 targets. He had 71 receptions. He had 807 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns from a receiving perspective while adding 2 rushing touchdowns. He's being drafted at the receiver 54 spot, ADP 140. It's crazy to me that even alongside Devontae Adams, you had your receiver 2 putting up these kind of numbers. What did that equate to, man? He averaged 11 fantasy points a game in half PPR roughly. He also had his 8 touchdowns was on 21% target share. Okay, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And then you start, okay, so then they got a new quarterback, right, with Gardner Minshew. Aiden O'Connell is back up at this point in time. So honestly, man, I assume that will probably go down a tad. All of his numbers a shade, especially with the emergence of Trey Tucker, especially with them drafting Brock Bowers in the 13th overall. Guys, I promise I know that. Just trust me. Okay, I get he's not top 10. My apologies. Okay, but again, yes, man, I think that this is going to go down just a shade, but this is another flyer that absolutely could be a flex piece for you come early the season, mid-season, so on and so forth. So why not take a shot on this cat? I like Jakobi Meyers.
Reminds me a lot of the production last year from Josh Downs, who was an absolute darling last year. And who was throwing the ball to Josh Downs last year?
That's right, man. A little
It
bit
was
of
Gardner
Minshew.
Minshew. So Gardner Minshew, definitely, we know he can support 2 receivers. He absolutely can. So yeah, I like it, man. I like it too. Again, much disrespect. It's not a guy I want to play. It's not a guy I want to start. But again, we're talking about your last pick here.
Last
guys.
pick.
Yeah, this could be a trade piece. This could be somebody you can plug in if you get decimated in injuries. There's a lot of options here for guys like Jakobi Meyers. So yeah, it's a no-brainer taking him as your last pick. All right, guys, that is the episode for the day. Appreciate you all joining us. Again, thank you so much for all of your support, for everything you guys have done for us. It's been so wonderful, and I hope we're reciprocating that value and giving you guys some good fantasy advice here. But thank you so much. Don't forget to follow, share, like, click all the shit. Do all the stuff. Do all the things. Yeah, sub up, baby. We got X is Frankly Fantasy F. We got Facebook and Instagram. Instagram's great, man. You guys got to see the Instagram. There's a lot of funny shit and good information on there, and breaking news as well from the NFL. So it'll help you guys out during the season. Instagram, Frankly Fantasy Football, and watch on YouTube, guys. We got videos and clips as we're talking about these guys. Those of you that are just listening on Apple and Google and Spotify
and iHeartRadio.
And iHeart, yes, of course. Everywhere podcasts are found, every possible place. But when you're listening, while Frankie's talking about these guys, in the background are the highlights. We've got films. You can physically see these guys. So you're not just taking Frankie's word for it. You can watch them. You can get an idea of what's going on. So follow on YouTube. Watch it on YouTube, guys. We got so much content out there. Hopefully we're getting you ready for your drafts. Good luck. It's happening. Frankie, our draft is coming up, baby.
I'm so
it's
excited.
Here.
I'm like shaking on the inside, remember?
Slow motion. Slow motion.
Go.
I like it. There. You are free guy. You're free guy.
I'm free
That's
guy.
what you are. You're an NPC. You're free guy.
That's right.
Yeah. What do we have coming up, buddy?
Guys, stay tuned for the Champions episode dropping next week, right before that of the Thursday night game. And so we will be claiming who is our champions, who we are planting our flag in, and we're going to be talking mad shit throughout the year. So do not listen, or do not miss, do not listen, don't even listen. Fuck you guys, right? No, absolutely not.
Frank, your marketing's terrible.
It's terrible. Don't you ever listen to us, okay? Guys, tune in. It's going to be a fun episode. Johnny and I, this is our favorite episode by far of the year. So there will be some fun theatrics as well. So don't miss this episode before the first game.
We've also got our last and final mock draft coming on Friday, guys. So get into those mocks, baby. All right, Frank, let's do it, man. May the fantasy gods smile upon you. Bye.